Yeah, Radika, YouTube chat does work. But I need to try and put that somewhere I can see it, and then, I don't know, do something about that one. Can you hear me? Is sound coming through? Send me a message in YouTube chat, I guess. Okay, it looks like the video's working. You can hear me. Okay, cool. I can see your messages. I don't know that I have a good way of getting y'all on audio. How would we do that? Could call you on like Discord or Hangouts or something? Oh well, you can just ask me questions in chat, I guess. No, that's terrible. That's crappy. Let's find a better way. I know, let's do this thing. And I'll say that, and that, and that. Okay. And then that. So if y'all join that one, let's see if your audio comes through as well. Sorry if anybody's watching and now wondering what we're just talking about. I would keep it in Jitsi, but I already closed Jitsi, so too late, Jitsi. You had your chance.
Why? What we're just talking about. I would keep it in Jitsi, but I already closed Jitsi, so too late, Jitsi.
Okay, mute YouTube.
Alright, so we have a couple of anonymous people in Talkie. Can either of you try saying something so we can get some audio? See if we get it.
Can you hear me? Nope, there's no response. Great.
Oh, I see desktop audio coming through, but I can't hear it. How can I fix that?
Here, let's swap this up. No, no.
I probably can't. Oh, it had to be voice meter stuff. Dang it.
Wait, Kaylee, say something.
Hi.
Okay, I can hear you.
Cool. Okay, let's see if I can set that up.
Kenneth just can't hear us.
Oh my goodness, this cycle through YouTube is just driving me. It's hilarious.
What, the latency?
Yeah, well, it's just.
Okay. Input should be there. Input there should be that. So should this one just be my headphones? See, I probably should have just done all this beforehand, huh? That would have made more sense. That's not good. Okay, I want this one to be... Virtual input is that one. Okay. So that input should just be nothing. That hardware out would be that one. Nope. Computers. Why? Why are computers terrible? Sorry, y'all. I'm just trying to figure out how to get this to go where I want it to go. Give me just a second. Okay, did that do anything? No. That did not do anything. Okay, let's just not worry about it. Y'all can send me messages in YouTube chat, and we'll just have to deal with that. It sucks, but that'll have to work for now because I can't get this audio to go where I want it to go. Because computers are terrible. If you didn't know. Okay, that's fine. Cool. Okay, so I'll show these again real quick because we talked about them earlier on the other stream and they're not on this one. So I'm using Docker because I'm on Windows and I want like a pretty sane, normal environment. So we're using Alpine Linux with Python 3.7 installed. We're copying over all of our local code and we're going to pip install everything and we're going to expose port 5000. Right now all we're pip installing is Flask. And then in the Docker Compose, this is our database, so it's just Postgres. We've set up the user and the password, and we've exposed the port. And then we have our web container, which is running Flask, has the local directory as /code, exposes port 5000, depends on the database, so that way it can use it. And then we set up a couple of little just arguments here so we can get to things. And in my app.py, I have the most basic Flask app directly from the Flask quick start guide, which is just, you know, like here's your route for /, so your default basic one, and then it's going to return just the string hello world. And I should have an extra line above that to satisfy pep 8. Okay, and when I go to 5000, I get hello world. Okay, so super basic Flask setup. Nothing special here. So let's do just some simple Flask stuff, and then we'll see about trying to build that app that I proposed to all of you. So first of all, let's add another route here. So to add a route, we use this decorator, @app, and then we call the route method. And we pass in the path to where we want to go. So in this case, we'll say like /hello, and then let's call this one hello again. We'll change the old one's name in a minute, and we'll say return hello world, and let's just call this one say index, and it can just say index. Doesn't really matter. So I'll save that, and when I refresh, it now says index. And if I go to /hello, then now I get hello world. So we've made two different routes that do two different things. So pretty straightforward to add routes. This isn't that far off from like Express and things like that. Like this is a pretty normal way of doing that stuff. So we can also make it to where our routes take in arguments or variables. So we can do that by adding in, say, like something like this. So now inside of here we'll have a variable called name. And so we need to accept that. So we're going to go ahead and put it there. And let's do this. We'll return f and name. So this is called an f string in Python. We can use any variable that exists in this scope inside of here, and it will let us do that. What's cool is we can also do like, what is it, capitalize? And let's just say upper. And so now, if I go to /hello/Kenneth, I get hello Kenneth. If I go to /hello nothing, I get not found because that's not a valid URL. We're requiring name to come through. So I do believe I can do this. And we'll delete to there. And we'll say that by default, name is equal to world. So now, if we go to just /hello, we get hello world. And if we go to /hello Radica, then we get Radica. So, pretty basic way of doing routes. You specify the path, and then you specify any variables. And if you want to, you can also go in here and add in something like string. I think it's string. It might be str. And then if I try to turn this into something that's not a string, it will turn it into a string. Maybe it's str. Yeah, there we go. Oh no, that's a different error. Okay, so that's just making that to be like a string. We could also change this to say like int. And if I put in Kenneth, it's not found because Kenneth isn't an int, right? It's not an integer. So Radica has asked, what's the difference with Django or whatever? And Keremy asked, Flask is a web framework, right? Flask is a web framework. The difference between Flask and Django is they have different approaches to how things are built. And Django includes a whole lot of stuff out of the box. So you get an ORM, you get a way to do forms, you get validation, you get like ability to send emails and all that kind of stuff right out of the box with Django, and you don't get those with Flask. With Flask, you kind of have to add everything in on your own as you go. So, that's probably enough for now about that basic thing. Alright, so any good web app is going to need a template of some kind. So let's look at adding in templates, because templates are kind of important. So now let's say from Flask import render template. So we're going to bring in this render template function. And I want to have this one return render template. And the template I want to return, we'll call it hello.html. And then we have to pass in a bunch of keyword arguments here. So I don't really like doing individual keyword arguments. I prefer to do a dictionary full of data that I'm going to send. So I'm going to do context equals, we're going to make it into dict, and I'm going to say name is equal to name. So delete that line. So what we've done now is we've added in this dictionary, and we're going to render this hello.html template, which doesn't exist yet, and we're going to send it whatever is in context, but this ** will go from name Kenneth. It'll transform that into name equals Kenneth. Okay, that's what that ** does in this kind of thing. So I'll leave that as a comment just so y'all can see it. So if I try to render this now, I'm going to get an exception that there's no template was found. So let's add a new directory. Let's actually call it templates. And inside of this templates folder, we're going to make a new file. We're going to call it hello.html. And we'll just do h1, hello, and then we're going to print out our variable. So we do that with 2 curly braces. So we're just going to say hello name. And if I refresh, now I get the name. So this time we didn't change the name. We didn't make it uppercase, lowercase, anything like that. We just brought it straight into here. So, yeah. So by default, Flask looks for a directory called templates, and inside there it looks for your templates. So you can specify like other locations or places for them, but you don't have to. And let's see, what else do we want to look at there? Probably filters. Yeah, let's look at filters real quick. Where is that in the docs? See, I just have to read the docs too while I'm showing y'all stuff. There we go, filters. Is that the only one? No, there's more filters than that, right? Huh, maybe not. Okay, let's not worry about filters. Let's talk about JSON. What if I want to send back some JSON? Because maybe I'm building an API. And so let's just say this is like API v1 users. So def users. So we don't have to take anything here. We're not taking any arguments or anything. We're not worried about any of that. And we're going to do return JSONify, which we'll have to import. And we're going to return a list of users. And so we'll say username is Kenneth Love, and then we'll say username is Gibby, and we need to import JSONify. So I want to import JSONify from Flask. Not really big on how I did that, but whatever. And now if I go to API v1 users, I get back JSON instead of HTML. So really simple way to do, I know what this HTML is. I don't want to do anything, or not HTML, sorry. This JSON is. I don't want to do anything special with it. But it's a way of just getting that data through. Okay. That's like super basic Flask. There's more to Flask, but I'll only share that if you want to see more. JSONify is built into Flask, but there is also a Python function for it. What's nice about JSON, so I could have done it like this. I could have done import JSON. And then I could have done, let's make this into a variable so we can just hold on to it. So username, Kenneth Love. Username, KB. I like trailing commas, so we're going to use a trailing comma. And then I could have done return JSON.dump_s, which is for dump string of users. I think I want to change this name. Let's call this user names. Just because I don't want to have the function users and the variable there with the same name. It doesn't really matter, but I don't want to do that. So, but if I do that, you notice this comes back as text, not as actually JSON. So what I'd have to do is I'd have to override how this returns. And I would do that with, what is it, Flask response. And yeah, you can see there that I imported JSONify from Flask. From Flask import JSONify. Let's do this. From Flask import JSONify. We'll do one import per line at the most. Let me find the response thing. Okay, so this is all a guess. So from Flask import response, that has an E in it, and I want to return response, and I pass in, oh no wait, sorry, hold on, there's another thing here called make response. What does that let me do? No, I don't want to do that. I want to do this one. Oh, no, I don't want to do this one. Holy crap, that's way more work than I want to do. Okay, I don't want to do it. So, we're going to just use the old one, which is just return JSONify usernames. So just the data that I want to return. And then if we refresh this again, so now we get JSON, and it got sent. Let's see, let's do this. Let's look at network. And so we did this get, and if we look at the response headers, we can see here that it came out as application JSON, as opposed to if I go to here to just hello, and we look at network, this just comes out as text HTML. Linda, I am using PyCharm. And yeah, that's basically what you would do to create an API in Flask. But an API that just sends hard-coded data is really not useful, right? Like you need to be able to send back stuff from a database. So let's look at that one. So there's a lot of different databases that you can use for Python, or sorry, not databases. We're only using one database. We're using Postgres because that's the only database worth using. There's lots of different ORMs that you can use for Python. You can write, what is it? There's cursor. Okay, that's only SQLite 3. Okay, so SQLite 3 is built in. We can use SQLite 3 directly and just write stuff out if we want to. I don't want to do that though, because there's no reason to write. A, there's no reason for me to use SQLite. B, I don't want to have to write all the SQL and queries and stuff like that myself. So if you know how to query a database without an ORM, you know enough backend. I mean, sure, but if you're writing production code without an ORM, you're writing production code wrong, is how I would say. I like Peewee, so I'm going to use Peewee real quick. Because Peewee is a lot of fun, and it has a fun name. It's called Peewee. So, the first thing we need to do is we need to install Peewee. And we do that with Peewee is equal to, what is the newest version of Peewee? Do we know? I know you're trying to pass an interview. I'm going to teach you more than you need for that interview. Because that's the way to do it. Just beat them at their own game. It looks like 3.6.0 is the newest. But I'm going to double check. We can do a bit of the raw SQL if you really want to. But man, is raw SQL terrible. Peewee is currently on version... What version are you on? Come on, Charles. Don't make me read through your whole thing to find out what version you're on. Am I going to have to go look into your setup pie? I am. I'm going to have to go yell at Charles Lifer. Shouldn't have to yell at Charles about this. It's not even in there. It's in... Where is it? It's in there. .8.2. Okay. Okay, so I'll save that, and then I actually want to shut down my Docker. And then I'm going to re-up it once it's down. And that should... So that should be up. And if I come over here and I just do, oh, I don't need that anymore. Let's just do import Peewee. And we save that. No module named Peewee. You didn't install Peewee for me? Come on, what the heck? Yeah, I can't do that one. Can I attach? Nope. Delete container. Sure. That's why we use Docker. Okay, so that's going to recreate Flask RPG Web. And that should just make it... What are you doing, man? Come on. Yeah, 3.8.2. It's out. Docker compose down. Docker compose build. There we go. That's what I wanted you to do. Flask, Peewee. Great. I'm actually just going to stop using the Docker panel. I'm just going to do it in terminal. Docker compose up. And if you're not familiar with Docker, don't worry about it. Okay, so now if I refresh this, sweet, we get that. All right, so let's create our models. Let's make a simple model, and we'll use that model. So I'm going to make a new file. Then I'm just going to call models.py. Name doesn't matter. You can call it whatever you want. And I'm going to say from Peewee import star. Most of the time you don't want to do that because importing star just brings everything in. This is the recommended way of doing it, so I'm going to follow the advice of the actual docs. And this also makes it to where we don't have to type Peewee dot in front of everything. So our DB is going to be a Postgres database, which I've got to find out how to do that. Give me just a second. Okay, there we go. So Postgres database, and that will be, what will we call that? The name of the database. And after that, you can specify psychopg2 parameters. Okay, so the name of our database is Flask RPG. And then we'll need to set some other things too. User is equal to Flask RPG. Password is equal to Flask RPG. Super easy, right? And then can I do host? I can do host. Host equals database. That should work. And then I want to reformat that code with black. Okay, that's fine. So Postgres database comes, oh no, PostgreSQL database. Okie dokie. So that should get that for us. And then let's do class user. I did not have to import Postgres database because of this from Pee-wee import star thing. So, oh, actually, yeah, let's follow that. Class base model, extends model. And the only reason we're doing this is because I want to set up that all of these come from our database up here. And so then this one will extend base model because it comes from, it has that same database. Okay, so now, yeah, let's just do username equals char field. And again, I don't have to import any of this stuff because it's being handled that other way. Okay. And yeah, PostgresDB is set up like it's coming in from here, and Pee-wee is letting me connect with it and do whatever kind of stuff I want to do. Sorry, I know there's a thing I have to do somewhere down here. Okay, so let's come back over here to app.py, and let's add a thing in down here at the bottom. And we'll say from, nope, not from, if name is equal to main, then we want to do some stuff. So up here at the top, we're going to say import models, which is our models.py file. And then we're going to say models.db.connect so that we access the db variable that's inside of models, and we call connect on it. And then we're going to do models.db.create tables. I cannot spell today. Holy crap. And we pass in the name of each of the models to make. Yeah, I'll talk about the double underscore in just a second. So, user. And I like trailing commas. So, this double underscore name double underscore, which you'll often hear referred to as dunder name, is, this is a magic variable that represents the current namespace. So if I run this file directly, my current namespace will be dunder main. If I import this file and run it from somewhere else, then my namespace will not be dunder main, my namespace will be app, because that's the name of the file that I'm on. There are lots of these magic ones. They're mainly used when you're creating your own classes. So we can talk about those a little later. I don't see any arguments or anything complaining there. That all seems to be working. Just in case, though, I am going to bring that up again, just to make sure that it's working. Cool, seems to be working. Refresh. All right, and so now, I don't know that this will let us see it, but let's find out. PostgreSQL. I want, sure, but I want Flask RPG, and Flask RPG, and Flask RPG, and let's test that. Yeah, you can allow, that's fine. Okay, successful, great. So if I now look at my database here, so we can see that there's this thing here, and I have one database, Flask RPG. It has one schema, which is public, but that looks like it did not create. Looks like it did not create the models. So our code didn't get run, and I bet that that's not actually done like that for Flask. So let's see what I can do to get Flask to do something when I start up the thing. Sorry, some of the stuff I have to look up because Flask went and changed a bunch of stuff a while back. Signals. Maybe a signal. Okay, yeah. Connect method. Yeah. Template rendered. Why don't you list all of the signals? There we go. My God. Alright, that's all useless. Let's just do this. Let's just take that out. And we'll just call that whenever the app comes up. Postgres driver not installed. That makes more sense. Because I bet we don't have PsychoPG2. I don't remember what the newest version of PsychoPG2 is, so let's find out. Two 2.8. All right. So we need to stop this. We need to build it. Okay, let me see. Linda says, if I remember right, you include that condition at the end of your file to ensure that if you import that file to another file, the stuff under that conditional wouldn't run twice. You actually do it so that the condition isn't run at all, the stuff under the condition. Which is, you know, really handy because you don't want it to just run all the time. But in this case, I don't care. I'm only running this one file. I'm not going to... I may import the models somewhere else, but right now I'm not. And it doesn't really matter too much. Why did that fail? pgconfig executable not found. How do you not have the pgconfig executable? Oh, it's required to build it from source. Otherwise, psychopg2 binary. Aha. The stuff under the condition won't ever run if you're importing the file. If you run the file directly, it'll run, but only once. But I am installing the psychopg2 binary. psycopg2 -binary. If this keeps failing, we'll just use SQLite because... What are you doing? Alright, whatever. We're just going to use SQLite. I don't have time for this. Okay. So, yeah, we'll just use SQLite. Because it doesn't really matter one way or the other. So we don't need any of that. Shift V. There we go. So db equals SQLite database. And we'll call this users.db. Okay, and if we build, just to make sure it's back to a working condition, manifestations of your dreams came true. Oh, I'm still using an ORM. I'm just not using Postgres. I'm using Psycho PG, or I'm using SQLite instead. Okay, refresh. Refresh. There we go. Something came up. Database. I want to change this database. Data source should be SQLite. And the file should be that one. Okay. Disconnect and remove that one. Okay. Users, schemas, main, user, username. So we have data. So let's add in to our username here. Let's add in a row. So ID can be null, nope, and username will be Kenneth Love. And let's add one more, and this one will be KV. Okay, and then I want to commit that. There we go. So that commits that. So now we've got 2 rows that are in there. And let's go ahead and pull those out for our users thing. So the way that we want to do that is, sorry, give me just a second to find it here because it's been a while since I've done it. Okay, so let's do this. Let's say usernames equals models dot user dot select. So we're just creating a select statement, and we just want to get all of them. That'll get all of them. Okay. And then we want to turn those into, I don't know if we have to turn those into anything. Let's just see what happens when we render that out. Okay. So now if I refresh this, object of type model select is not JSON serializable. That makes sense. Okay. So then let's do database usernames. Usernames equals a list, and inside that list we're going to create dictionaries, and we're going to say username user.username for user in database users. And let's try that one. Database users is not defined. Ah. Sweet. So we get the same data, and now it's coming out of the database. So if I was to go in here and change this so that it was Kenneth Love 2, and then send that to the database, refresh, and now it's Kenneth Love 2. So I didn't have to do anything, right? I didn't have to write any new SQL. I didn't have to change anything out. I didn't have to do anything special. Do you really want to see me do this without an ORM? Because I can do it. It's just stupid. Because why would you not use an ORM if you have an ORM available? Yes, you want to see that. Okay, I'll do another one. For that, I will have to pull up the Python 3 SQLite stuff because I don't remember any of that offhand. So let me pull up some docs and then we'll start on it. Okay, so up here at the top, we'll say import SQLite 3. So this comes pre-installed with Python. And I'm basically just going to copy this. So we'll just do a new one that looks like this one, but we'll do it a little differently. So we'll call this one user names. Okay, so inside this one, we won't do any of this stuff. So instead, we'll make a connection. So our connection is going to be SQLite3.connect, and our database name is users.db. So now we have our connection to our database, and so now we want to create a cursor. So a cursor is like a cursor. And that is what lets us run SQL. All right. So we're going to do, I want to query, though. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do c.execute. And this lets me execute some SQL. So I'll say select username from, it doesn't have to be caps, but we'll follow the normal syntax. From user, ugh, I should have called that users, but whatever. Okay, and that's all we need to do, because we want to get all of the users, right? So then, I'm going to say database users equals c.fetch all, and that will fetch all of those things. And let's see if that works, because I think that'll work. No. Oh, yeah. It's not it's not attributes. It's what are you doing, keyboard? It's items in a tuple. So if we look at this, it should be 1 that comes out. No, it should be 0, because that's always selected. Was the username. There we go. There's those 2 usernames. If we instead did select star, then now we would have 2 items. Let's go ahead and add that in. So this would be username here, which would be user 0, or user 1, and this would be ID. It would be user 0. And if we refresh that, so now we get ID of 1, username Kenneth Love 2, ID of 2, username KV. So that's how you would do it, just writing pure SQL. So to me, that's annoying, because I don't want to have to do that. I want to do this. I want to say, just give me those things, and give them to me as a thing that I can do attributes from. I don't want to get a tuple of fields back. To me, that's annoying. But there you go. There's both ways of doing that. Okay, so that covers how to make a basic API. That covers how to do ORM stuff. Let's see. I guess the other thing we need to talk about would be forms and form validation. So y'all want to see that stuff? You want to see forms? Still waiting on a yes for forms. If you don't want forms, then that's cool. We don't have to do forms. Sure, why not? Wow. So glad you're so invested in that. Okay, so WT forms is what we're going to use. And WT forms is a pretty simple Python package for handling forms. So we need to install it. And the way we do that is with WT forms. And I don't know what the current version of WT forms is. So let's find out. What is the newest version? 2.2.1. Okay. And we'll need to kill this and rebuild it. Mostly database stuff, forms are okay too. Throw my hands for every time something works. Yeah, I do that too. You don't understand how forms would work in a back-end thing. So, I will show you how forms work in a back-end thing, because this is a web framework. So web frameworks span front and back end. Now they don't have to do anything special on the front end, like say JavaScript things, But typically to have a web app or a web site thing that works with people, you need to have a way for them to submit data to you, right? So you go to Twitter, you type in your tweet, you hit enter, it submits a form to Twitter. So forms actually hold two purposes. One, they create HTML that people can look at and fill in, which is cool. The more important thing, though, is that forms work as a way of validating data. And so that's way more important, to me at least. So let's make a new file. I like doing things in new files. And let's call this forms.py. And man, I wish I had named that users instead of user. Whatever. Okay, so forms.py. So we're going to make a form for creating a new user. Okay? So from wt forms, import form. Let's do a Boolean field, because you got to agree to the terms of service or code of conduct or something like that, right? And string field, and let's do validators too, so we can kind of show off all these little bits. So let's call this new user form, and this is going to extend form. Okay. Now, everything I'm showing here also works in Django, but in Django you don't have to install any of this extra stuff, right? We can just do Django. And I'm happy to do a Django project after this if y'all really want to see it, because it's not really hard to do. Or maybe not today, maybe like next week. Okay, so we're going to have this registration form. We need to have a username, which is a string field, because you're going to give me a string for your username. And we'll say username is the little label that should be shown. And then for validators, let's do the length validator. And we want to set the max length to, I should spell length correctly. Let's set the max length equal to, say, 40 characters. So you can't give me a username that's larger than 40 characters. But let's say minimum it has to be at least 3 characters, or 2 characters. You can't give anything smaller than that. Okay, so that's those. And then, yeah, let's say accept COC. So you have to accept the COC. And this is going to be our Boolean field. And it's going to say, I accept the COC. And this one also needs a validator. But for this one, it's just a pretty simple one called input required. So they have to give us this, or the form is considered to be invalid. Okay? The form, like, doesn't exist, or whatever. Okay, so, I got a lot of crap open, so I'm going to close some of these things. We don't need hello. Maybe we'll reuse hello. No, we won't. Okay, so let's collapse a couple of these down, so a little easier to see what's going on. Okay, cool. So let's add a new one, app.route, and we'd probably call this, what, like register? And register. And we want to take the request this time. We want Flask to give us the request object that comes in. So the request is like the path that it's going to, any args that come in through the URL, data that comes in via post or get or whatever. The request just represents all of that as one block that we can then pull pieces out of. So up here at the top, we also need to do import forms. And so in here, we want to do a new form. So form is going to equal forms.newUserForm. That's what we called it. And that's going to take anything that's in request.post. Now request.post is blank if it's a get, put, patch, or delete, or head, or options request. There's too many verbs there. It will only have data in it if this is a post. So if it's not a post, it's going to be blank, and the form is just empty. Okay. So we'll do if request.method is equal to post, and our form is valid. So form.validate returns true, then we'll have that. So let's see. Model.user. Okay. So let's say that we're going to have a new user, which is models.user instance. And we're going to say user.username is equal to form.username.data. So if we look back at our form, we have this field called username. That's going to have some data in it whenever this form gets filled out. And we're going to pull that data out, stick it onto this username. And then we want to call user.save. I'm going to have to check that this is the right way to do it. I'm pretty sure that's how we do it. Sorry, give me just a second. Because it's been a while since I've written this. Yeah, we can do it that way. Or, okay, that's easier. So let's just do this. Models.user.create. And then we can pass in our arguments here. And we'll say username equals form.username.data. We don't need that, and we don't even need the save, because the .create will automatically save it. And that means we also don't really need user equals. Okay, and then we should redirect the user. So Flask redirect. Yep, okay. So from Flask import redirect. And I think we also want from Flask import URL4. Okay, so then back down here, if this was cool, we created the user, everything was fine, then we want to return redirect URL4, and the URL we want to go to is users. And if that didn't happen, so it wasn't post or the form wasn't valid, then we want to return, which I can't type today, render template. And we want to do, we'll say register.html and form equals form. Just so you can see both ways of doing that argument passing, the context thing. Okay, so inside here we need a new file, which is register.html. Although register is kind of fun. I kind of like doing that one. Okay, and then how do I render that form? Okay, so we do something like this. Load WT forms. So this will load any special template tags that WT forms gives us. Oh, no, wait. We don't need that. That's a Django thing. Okay, so we're just going to do form. Method equals post. Action equals /register. That's what we called it, right? Register, yep. And I can actually do a, you can do URL for register. I think that should work the same. Sorry, my typing is messy today. So let's just try that one real quick and see what happens. Missing required argument request. Oh, I don't think we have to do that. I think that just comes in. But maybe we have to ask for it? Okay, I have to import request as well. So I'm doing this giant block of imports up here, mainly just so y'all can see the imports, and not because I have to do them all as this. I can do them all on one single line. I just like having them out like that. Okay, and then has no attribute post. So I want there. Do I just want request? Sorry, hold on just a second, y'all. This is weird. I don't know what it's doing or not doing, because I don't mess with this very often. Oh, do I need to use Flask WTF? Maybe? Yeah, okay, sorry. We gotta do a little swap real quick. I want Flask WTF. Yeah, so let's install that. Okay, so then we bring this down so we can build. While that's going, I need to change some of this a little bit. So this needs to be from, oops. Okay, from Flask WTF, import Flask form, and this becomes Flask form. Okay, so then bring that back up. Okay, and then if we come over here, then okay, so then we want to do form equals forms.newUserForm. If form.validate on submit, and we also need to say here that methods equals get and post. You can both get this view and post this view. So if that is true, then I want to do that stuff and return that redirect. Otherwise, I want to render that template with that form. Okay. Invalid syntax. That's true. I forgot a comma. Secret key is required to use CSRF. Okay, but I didn't tell you to use CSRF. So much tolerance for error messages. I mean, how else do you... What do you do if you don't use error messages? Okay, here we go. To enable CSRF protection globally for a Flask app, register the CSRF Protect extension. Easy enough. From Flask WTF CSRF import CSRF Protect. Wow. Save. App equals CSRF protect app. What are you doing? Sorry, I'm gonna catch up on chat. So much longer for miss and burning in his face, but you're so calm, no sighing. Error messages, friends, friends not food. Was it created automatically? Yeah, it wasn't created automatically. I'm trying to figure out where that comes from. Flask app's secret key. Okay. Is the problem that I don't have a secret key defined? That could be it. So let's try this. Secret key, not so secret, huh? Okay, and rebuild this because we changed the environment. And yeah, no, there's no sighing on error messages like this. I fully expect error messages like this, mainly because I haven't used this in a while. Was this Django, I wouldn't have to be doing all of this. Okay, and then I don't need this stuff because that's done automatically for anything using Flask form. But I do have to have the secret key, the CSRF thing. Okay. Easily enough, or easy enough, I guess. Bring it back up. There you go, there's a couple of size for you. What are you trying to do? Flask CSRF. That is not what I want. Arg isn't quite a sigh. That's true, it's not quite a sigh, but it's close enough. Where the hell does this come from? What's weird is there's nothing like in the Flask docs about this. I might be on an old version. Was that an old version? That may have been an old version. Okay, let's try this. From Flask WTF .csrf import csrf protect. And then we say csrf protect app. Okay, refresh. No. Even go into here is, whoa, my delete key just came off. Alright. Okay, so that one worked, but that one fails. And it fails because the Flask form wants that. New user form, okay. Process, and generate CSRF token. Okay. But how do I set that? Flask app secret key. Where do I get a secret key for Flask? Okay. And then it just goes into your config file? Or you do app.config. Okay. Let's just app.config secret key is equal to os.environ secret key, because I put that into my environment, right? Yep. Look at that. There we go. Okay. I think that's the code that generates that secret key error message. Yeah, this was what was responsible for all of that. Okay, so if we look at this, inspect element. Okay, yeah, so see, that's going to /register, just like I wanted. So let's go ahead and build out that form. So what's cool is that, if I can find my way back to what I was looking at, there we go. Okay, so I need to bring in some stuff here. So the first thing I want to do is form.csrf token. And if you don't know what CSRF is, we'll talk about that in just a second. And then form.username.label. And then form.username. And then input type equals submit. And I know some of y'all would have done that as a button, but whatever. Check it out. There's our username, and there's our submit query. And if we view the page source, we can see that we have the CSRF token. So a CSRF token, or a CSRF token, is a token that has to come in from my domain, and it's a signed value. So if you set up a site and you want to submit to my site, to my endpoints, you can't do that because you won't have a properly signed CSRF token. So this way you're preventing inputs from other places. And yeah, CSRF is often pronounced CSRF. And so we've got username, and we've got our username, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now let's change this. Let's give this a value of register. Okay, cool. So there's my thing. So I'm going to try and submit this without a username. Okay, so we're right back to there, just like we should have been. And I know I have some place where I can show errors, so let me find out where to do the errors so that we can show them. We can also add in reCAPTCHA if we wanted to do that. That's fun, I guess. Is that what I'm looking for? Error response? No. Nope, that's not it. Forms and fields. Flask form. We've got hidden tag. Form, reCAPTCHA widget, file allowed, file required, CSRF protection. Do I not have a thing for showing errors? Oh yeah, there we go. There's form.errors. Rendering fields. Ah, there we go. Displaying errors. Okay. So let's do this. Let's do we'll do a pointless div, and then we'll close that pointless div. And let's add a new thing here that is if form.username.errors. So if that field has any errors in it, then we want to show them, right? So let's do ul class equals, oh my god, I don't type on this computer nearly as much as I do my other one. For error in form.username.errors. Let's make this easier to read. And then we'll end that for. And then inside here, we'll do an li with the error. Cool. Hit register, and so now field must be between 2 and 40 characters long, right? So I have to do that. CSurf makes it so other people can't use your site right now. No, so CSurf makes it to where malicioushacker.com can't send form data to my site. Because if they try to submit form data, they won't have a valid CSRF token or CSurf token. And my site will go, hey, well, that's not real, and won't accept the data. Like here, we could test that with, do I have Postman installed? I do. Come on, Postman. Where are you at? There it is. Okay. So, like, here's Postman. Once it loads. Just skip it. I don't care. Oh my god, I don't care. I don't care about any of this stuff. Stop it. Okay. 127.0.0.1:5000/register. That's where I want to go. I'm going to do a post. My body is going to be form data, and I'm going to submit username is foobar. Doesn't matter. Send that, and we get a 400 bad request because we don't have the CSurf token. See, the CSurf token is missing. And if I just wanted to make this up and say like CSRF token, that's what I think that field's called. Yep. Oh, no, wait. Yep, CSRF token. Okay, and we'll just say not real token and submit it. Then I still have bad requests. Oh, no. Here, not real token. I don't know what that one is. There we go. So our CSRF session tokens, like, it's still bad, right? So what you have to do is you basically have to have a cookie. Let's inspect this. Storage, cookies. So here you can see there's this session cookie that exists. And it has this funky value here, EY, JJ, whatever. And then I have this value here. So what happens whenever this gets submitted is it gets that token that's in the form, and it gets my session value and uses my session value to decode the token that's in the form to make sure the token in the form is valid. You don't necessarily have to be sending the form from this page, but you have to be sending the form after you have my session token. And you won't have my session token until you come to my site. So basically the only way to submit a form on my site is to be on my site, unless I explicitly disable CSurf on something else. So it's just a really simple, basic bit of validation. Okay, so we said between 2 and 40, so let's just do something way longer than 40. Same error, we're still getting that. So our validation works. So we know that our form validation here of 40 and 2 is required. And if I put in something that is valid, like we'll say klove, that's valid, that's going to fail. And the reason that fails is because we didn't include the COC one. Okay, so let's include that one as well. So we'll do a new div. And inside of that, we'll just do form dot, what did we call that? Except COC. COC dot label. And then we'll do form dot accept COC, which I really wish we had a better abbreviation for that. Cool. So here's my username, whatever, register. That doesn't pass because this has to be submitted. And I imagine if I was to look at this, it would have required equals true on it. Yeah. So it's got required. So I could edit the HTML. Ooh, now it's not required. Register. Except it doesn't work because it just comes back as failing, right? So we could take this stuff, paste it into here, And now, if I edit this again, so the required is no longer there, and I hit register, I get out this field is required. Okay, so I can control the validation, I can control the error messages that come in. I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to sign up for a new username as klove. And now, when we pull out the usernames from the database, I still have KennethLove2, I still have KV, and I have klove as well. So our view worked to render the form, validate it on submission, create the user if the data was valid, and then redirect back to users. All right, so Linda says, is there a best practice for implementing user registration with passwords in Flask? I would look through like a WT Forms cookbook. I'm sure there's one out there. The default, the crash course, the quick start guide has how to do user registration. I'm scanning that as we're doing this because I don't know this stuff. I don't use Flask and WT Forms all that often. I know enough to remember how to do these basic bits, and then I'm pretty fast at reading docs. So I can read the docs, change my code, and then make it work. But yeah, I mean, as far as best practices go, you're going to want to just make sure that it's valid, like really, really well validated. I would suggest you want to do things like sending out an email for account validation, making sure they actually want their account registered, and basic stuff like that. I would probably lock a page like this down so that it was login required or something, so that you know that the users have registered, or sorry, that anyone viewing this page has registered as a user and they're logged in. Yeah, so excuse me. About the only other thing I can think of is we could have an API view for this that does the registration, and that would be handy just so y'all can see what that looks like. But if Radhika's brain is dead, then we may not be of much help to her. And actually, I don't remember how we disable that CSRF stuff. I know there's a way, and we'll need to if we're gonna do if we're going to exclude a view. Oh, okay. No, that looks pretty easy. So let's try that. So let's try, and let's take this. Shift V. There we go. Y. P. Okay, and I'm going to say this is API/v1/register. And this can only be gotten through post. And actually saying gotten is kind of weird, but whatever. So API register, we do this, and what we actually want to do here is we want to just return, I want to return a 4 or a 200. Flask response code, status codes. Okay. So what I can do is, if they are correct, I can return nothing with 201, which is the status code for created. So I'm going to make this form. I'm going to validate that on submit. And I'm going to do that. And oh, that I actually want to return JSONify form.errors. We'll see if that works. And we'll say this is a 400 because it's bad user data. This one, we want to return that as a 201. Okay, I think that'll work. So let's say API v1 register, and my body is going to be the value Radhika, and I don't need to pass a token, but I do need to pass accept COC as 1. I don't think it matters. I think it just has to have a value. Hit send. View function mapping is overriding an existing endpoint register. No, it's not. Oh, okay. So this actually has a different name. And then this one I need to mark with @CSRF. Dot exempt. I know the token's missing. I told it not to require a token. Does that have to come second? Oh, I need to be sending JSON. Oh well, I'm not going to worry about it. There's a pretty handy library out there that is called Flask RESTful. Yep, Flask RESTful. And this will give you pretty quick start stuff for creating a basic API. So you just basically have these things that are called resources. They define get, post, put, whatever, and you add those as resources to your API, and then you can just send data to it or get data from it. So you don't have to do all of that coding by yourself. Don't ever do coding by yourself that you don't have to do. Okay, cool. So I've been going for a while, so I think I'm not going to do the Flask character sheet, but we can do those another week. That's the basic idea of how we would do like a normal homepage and a registration page, you know, something like that. You could build a page that lets you edit a username or add a password or whatever to this, and it would be just through the same kind of code. So I'm going to delete that because that was not correct. So yeah, super basic CSRF stuff. Any questions that I can answer real quick? He says real quick after 90 minutes of talking about stuff. So much learning. It's going to be live? Like you have to code it live? Because if you have to code it live, that's a lot scarier. Mainly, all you should have to worry about is stuff like this, I would think. I wouldn't think you would have to do, and you know, maybe something like this. I wouldn't think you would have to do anything too crazy. You have to code and talk live. That's not great to me. I guess if you like it, then that's cool, but I'm not a big fan of it. I can also put this up on GitHub if y'all want this code. There's nothing fancy or special here. It does have Bootstrap stuff available in it, but I'm not using those at this point. Actually, let's see. How would we do that? Flask CSS. Please put it up. I can put it up. Familiar. All right. Let me find out how to do the templating stuff. Okay, so we have a static directory, and then what do we do inside templates? Okay, so let's do that real quick. New directory called static, and then take both of those, put them into static. Cool, so inside static I have CSS, JS, whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna make a new file, which we're gonna call base.html. And inside here, we're gonna do our normal, you know, building a web page kind of stuff. HTML, body. Surely I have a template or something I can stick here. Insert live template. That. Oh, you were almost helpful, PyCharm. Almost. Okay, so then in here we would have head and title, something, link, rel equals style sheet, and href equals URL for static file name equals CSS / bootstrap .css. And then I need to close that, and then close that. And then I'm going to stick in a block called everything. And I'm going to end that block. And so then let's come over here to this one. And we're going to say that this one extends base.html. And then this right here is a block. So now if I refresh this, it looks like Bootstrap. What is it? You do like div class equals container. There you go. So you get normal, like, database stuff. I wonder what that asks me, guys. Sorry, I'm reading through text right now. Yeah, I can put it up. You can steal it. That's fine. Linda says, last minute question. Can you go over how you set up Postgres quickly? Like how you have Postgres down on the computer already and create a local Postgres DB and then hook up a Flash settings file. So I didn't install Postgres. I had Docker install Postgres. So I have in my Docker Compose, I have this thing here called database, which uses the Postgres image. And this is where to store the data, and this is like my environment stuff. And so if I was using this in Flask, if I was going to use this in Flask, which we had some problems earlier on with it not having access to some file it needed, then inside of like models.py is where I would do all the connection through to Postgres. Yeah, I don't know why it didn't install the PG whatever thing that it needed. I think I need to update this and have it install Postgres here. I think is what I need. I think it needs to install the Postgres client. But yeah, so what I would do is in here, I would do something like import OS, and then db equals PostgreSQL database, and then I do something like os.environ db name, and then like user equals os.environ db user, and so on, so that I had the username, the password, the table, all that kind of stuff. And then that would do connections based on what was here in my Docker file. So I'd have the DB name, the host, the username, password, whatever, all right there. And I would use those in here so that if I ever change my environment, it works. And that way I'm not passing passwords on to like a potential someone who downloads the repo. Because ideally you would set your passwords either in a vault or you'd set your passwords as environment variables whenever you run the thing. So long as they don't have like your actual server implementation, then they can't get to your database. If they have your actual server implementation, you're usually somewhat screwed anyway. So that's kind of your choice. Import kiwi, and then I'll show you. This is my much more preferred way of doing this. I much prefer that just because I like to have everything up on that. You can push a Docker file up to GitHub. On something like this, it doesn't really matter because this isn't a real thing. You know, I'm just setting up a test app for y'all. If this was something for real, like that you would actually want to deploy to somewhere, you're going to have to figure out how you want to store these credentials so that they're safe and secure. A HashiCorp vault is a really good way of doing it. You can also just not worry about it and just put it into your environment when you run the thing. So you kind of have to set that every time you set up a server, but it's a little safer. And there's other ways of doing it as well. It's kind of your choice on how you want to do that. But yeah, that's the basic idea, is doing something similar to that. All right. Any other questions before I call this quits? And then I will get this up on GitHub for you. Yeah, Linda, you can do the things through like Heroku's stuff. But if you're using Heroku, you don't really need like Docker. Docker would just be your local development at that point, which still saves you a lot of time and trouble, but you don't have to upload your Docker stuff to Heroku. You usually don't want to. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to call it quits, and I will stop the stream here in a few seconds. See y'all around.